And for me, I think what started as this crazy, someone innocent, someone like, oh my God, Matt has the best stories to tell kind of experience, it turned into, oh wow, I kind of like this, and I kind of feel pretty cool in this industry, and check me out. And all of a sudden, like, success, like how I define success started to change. That definition started to morph a little bit, right? And before I knew it, again, I was raised by a great family, but the slippery slope, got me. And I started to change. And my definition of success was, in some ways not the most righteous thing, or really not what matters most in hindsight, but at the time, it felt amazing.
So Robert Kardashian sounds like he was a mentor.
Yes.
Did he put the pressure, or did you feel the pressure despite his mentorship?
Working for Robert, I was just full of gratitude. I was full of gratitude. I felt like the luckiest dude ever. I felt like I got the biggest break ever. And so there was no pressure from him whatsoever, really. It was more of, I don't know. I mean, I've always been an achiever in some ways, even as a kid, whether it was in sports or school, or I've always worked hard, and, I didn't want to be a slouch. And so I think in the music industry, part of the challenge was the better you were at doing it. Number one, the more money you made, but number two, the more fame you got, right? And so then it's the red carpets, and then it's all the celebrity part, and then it's, which I say this all the time, and I'm not proud to say it, but like, it's, staying single and just being a jerk, to be honest with you. And that kind of entourage, show lifestyle, kind of like, okay, this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're having a great time.
Look, I worked in PR in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was champagne and cocaine and models and bottles, and it was Sex in the City.
That's right.
It was Manolo Blahniks and drinking Cosmos, and that's what it was. And for me, it was like until it wasn't. Then I burnt out and fizzled and completely ended up in rehab. So at what point did it start? So like now you're feeling cool. So you're kind of riding high. You're like on top of the world.
Yeah.
And at what point did we start to come down the other side?
Well, one thing really quickly is that at one point in my career, I did work in PR, and the project they assigned to me was called Bombshell Poker. So I was supposed to help hot chicks learn how to play poker and beat men in online poker.
Oh my God.
Right. So really, great, righteous
It sounds
stuff.
super full of like ethics and integrity. Yeah, it sounds neat.
Totally. Yeah. So I think what happened is I started noticing in moments that things felt off. And let me say, I never got into drugs. I smoked marijuana here and there, but like I've never tried cocaine. I never got into any of that stuff. But I started noticing moments where I just felt a little off. Or then I started noticing other people, like where I'd be at some celebrity's pool party, and I'd look across the pool, and I would see some dude probably in his 60s. And I'm like, now, am I going to be that guy one day with this trajectory for my life? And I didn't notice those things at first, but I started to notice them. And then I was in Las Vegas for an event, and I think in hindsight, I had my first panic attack, but I didn't know what it was. And I just kind of had a few more whiskeys and kind of just let it go away. But it was a Monday morning, eventually, where I woke up. Something was way off. I didn't know what it was. My food poisoning, am I having a heart attack? Like something was just weird. But I was just like, okay, just white knuckle this thing, get in the shower, get dressed, get your shoes on. And I was able to take these baby steps forward until all of a sudden, like whatever the force was that was coming was just so overwhelming that I lost it. And I remember I went running out the front door, and I just went running down the street, and I didn't even know where I was running to. I don't know what I was doing. It was completely like out of body experience. I ended up running back home and getting in my car. I called my mom and dad. I said, I'm coming home, which is a 6-hour drive. But I wanted to get to see them. I got in traffic, and all the traffic stopped. I freaked out in traffic. I drove through the center medium of the freeway, went back home. I called my doctor, drove straight to the doctor's, and it was just out of control. Like I was scared. I was crying. I was sweating. Like everything was just a blur. My vision was narrowed. It was like the scariest moment that I've ever experienced.
Did you think you were having a heart attack?
I did.
But it turned out to be a panic attack / maybe kind of nervous breakdown.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
What kind of preceded that? So like, were you still working for Robert or were you where were you?
No, at this point, not any longer.
Where were you working?
At that point, well, you know what? I was right at the end of Robert and going into the bombshell poker PR days.
Okay,
Yes.
right. So it was just, and it sounds like, which is interesting, because I talk a lot. Sometimes I was just on a panel I talk about being a publicist a lot. And I was talking about the stress and abuse that was heaped on me in those early Devil Wears Prada days. But it sounds like no one else put it on you. You kind of put it on yourself.
That's right.
Does that track?
100%. Yeah.
So the expectations and all of that, it just came to a crescendo.
It did. Yeah. And hey, to that point, part of my healing journey that we'll get to is I had to surrender the fact that I'm the one that got me here. And, I had to own that. And it was my choices. It was the way I was assigned to live. It was the things I was prioritizing. That was on me. And clearly I wasn't making good choices. So then that surrender allowed me to have someone come into my life in the form of a therapist who I call my expensive friend, right? And to speak to that. But yeah, when I learned it was a panic attack, I think / just breakdown, full breakdown. I was super scared, man. I refused any sort of medication at first because I didn't believe what the doctors were saying. Oh, I'm gonna be fine, and I can tough this thing out. But then I went home, and it didn't get better. It kept getting worse. To where finally I was at the doctor's the next day. And at that point, I started having thoughts of taking my own life. And for whatever reason, for me, it was going to look like getting my car up to 100 miles an hour on the freeway, just yanking the wheel, because my life shut down. It was a full-on shutdown of everything.
Do you have any idea why then? It seems kind of nebulous from the outside view. Like it just kind of, did you have any understanding that was coming?
No, I mean, not really. I think, again, hindsight is pretty awesome. And at this point I was 31 years old, and I think a couple things. Number one, I had a story for my life, how I thought it was supposed to go. At 31 years old, according to my story, I would have been a much bigger success than I was. I would have been married and probably had 1 or 2 children. I saw this path for my life. And at that point in time, I was not as successful as I thought I should be. I was far from married, right? Mm-hmm. And I think even like people in my family, like, is Matt ever going to settle down? I kind of started feeling some of that pressure. Right. A nickname for anxiety disorder is the people pleaser disease or the nice person's disease. And I realized I got so interested in making sure I was impressing people, and never saying no to anyone except myself. So control, I think control was a lot of it for me, wanting to always be in control of my life and the outcomes. And there are some things happened too, like with my favorite band that I worked with, where, we signed a massive record deal. And about a month before my breakdown, it turned out to be this huge legal mess with the label. So there were some things. The night before that Monday, I actually went on a blind date. I never talk about this. I went on a blind date with a woman that my mom's best friend set me up on. And everyone's like, okay, Matt, this is going to be the one. This is the one. She's perfect. Within 5 minutes, I was like, okay, she's not the one. And so I drove home from that, like dejected. And so there were enough little things, adding up over time.